Hello, my name is Patrick Moore.
I'm Marlisa McLaughlin.
Welcome to Health Buzz.
Perspectives on natural health and healing.
The title of our show this evening is A Post-Pandemic Conversation, a conversation and reflections on how this pandemic, this COVID virus, affected us personally, socially, in our community, our state, our country, and in fact, all over the world, Marlisa.
Incredible. Like the first time really, well, we've had pandemics, but we have had technology now and social media that really helped us get a very large picture of what was going on all across the planet.
Well, it's been a century since the Spanish flu, so
That's right.
hopefully we won't be around for the next one.
No, not unless we are really in great health and we
Unless
last
we're really
another.
into our anti-aging protocols and lived
That's
about
right.
to 200.
Well, first I want to just thank the viewers because it's been a really long time since we've produced a show. And I ran into some people here and there that actually said, oh, I caught you last night on TV. And I was thinking, wow, they're still watching reruns and benefiting and asking for more. So we're back because of you and your loyalty to the show and your curiosity and your willingness to want to be well. So thank you. We also want to thank Frank and Frank here at SEC TV for running those programs and having, you know, a backup for producing this out into the world.
They're truly warriors.
Total warriors. I mean, above and
dedicated
beyond.
to their profession and bringing good information to the public.
We also just want to thank a handful of people who provided us some interviews. They will be available on Health Buzz Show. Facebook address is Health Buzz Show, and you can catch those interviews there. They are answers to the question, how did COVID affect your life? And it was very interesting, Patrick, when I was trying to get these videos together. First of all, a lot of people declined. Some of the reason is because people don't want to be on TV, but people were really struggling with the question, like how it's so profound, how things have changed. And in some ways, maybe not at all, but in some ways, everything has changed. So the question alone was so provocative.
Yeah. And
right?
some people don't want it, they want it in the past. It's done.
We're tired of I got that too. I'm tired of talking about it.
It wasn't the greatest experience that everyone had.
Right.
I mean,
right.
So
Absolutely.
A lot of difficulties.
And also just the misinformation or the contrasting information and the confusion that played a big part in how people responded to that question.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. And we lost our momentum in recording and producing shows. The last one we did, Patrick, was a year ago, 2021. We had Kimberly Shipke on as our guest, the inventor of the laser, the green laser. And then it was a full year prior to that, and this is when Patrick actually was one of the first people in Connecticut to get COVID.
I sure was
right?
one of the first ones, one of the first unlucky ones. I belonged to a church in Yale University, and we had a lot of the students coming back at the end of January, February of 2020 from Asia, China, Europe, and I can't say for sure how I got exposed to it, but with all those students coming back into the church from all around the world, I got hit hard. And it was not a pleasant experience. We did a TV show on the aftermath. I was never worried because I believe in the power of nutritional medicine, and we'll talk about that later, and keeping your immune system strong in preparation for anything that could come unexpected. So, but I got through it, and we did a show on it, and been able to help a lot of people who have been exposed to it, or else to put up a good nutritional defense to protect in case this happens again.
And it was actually one of the first Zoom-produced shows here at SEC TV. It was at the beginning of having to be distanced. And so the studio was closed down. You were at your home. What was also great about that show, Patrick, was for me, for what you were offering, was that you really worked hard at providing information like, oh, what do I have in my cabinet because I can't leave my house? So there were a variety of things that most of us could have, and they didn't have to be high-end things that came from the health food store. And the foods themselves, like I remember that Patrick had offered the idea of cocoa, a hot cocoa as a opening your blood vessels, right, and getting your
Yes, nitric
energy
oxide,
flowing.
and also it's good for caffeine and things of that nature. And anybody who's had COVID, I'm sure, knows what the caffeine symptoms were like.
Yes. Well, I dove into that one, and I loved when you said you don't have to have a fancy organic cocoa. You can simply, if you have a package of Swiss Miss in your cupboard, that will do. That sent me off on a little bit of a chocolate.
I mean, there are different higher qualities than that, but for
But
the
if you
average
only
public,
have it,
yeah, exactly.
right? If that's what you
Yes.
have, and that's what I loved about the show.
Yeah,
So thank you for all that information.
you're welcome.
It was really important. Why don't we take a look? We have some images for you, a moments of reflection. So
Reflections, looking back on time, what all of us experienced and how it changed our lives.
So Frank, could you run that montage?
Well,
Oh, big breath. Thank you, Frank.
that one photograph of the empty streets, I mean, it's as if the world did stop and became completely deserted. I remember driving home at night. Sometimes I'd visit a friend, late, be 11 o'clock at night, driving through my city. I was the only one around. As if
Eerie.
everyone had disappeared. Everybody was hibernating, hiding, staying indoors. It was eerie.
Eerie. I got very emotional looking at that montage, and when I was putting that together, I had a feeling that something was going to be provoked, and just going back, because it's been a long time
Yeah.
that we've seen that, and I really tried to also avoid things that might have been triggering that were really difficult, because we did see so much, didn't we, both on social media and news coverage. We saw a lot, and I just have to say I was very, very fortunate that I had suffered no loss over COVID, and I really want to extend my heart out to those of you
Yeah.
who've lost family and friends, because some people didn't just lose one person, and that distancing, and you couldn't even be with people.
Visit your loved ones. You couldn't visit your loved ones. You couldn't go into the hospital. And a real shout out to all those hospital workers and what they called essential employees in all the different services who didn't stop working, who were out there on the front lines making a difference in people's lives. I mean, God bless them.
Thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
Right. So here we are. How did COVID affect you personally?
Well, I'd have to say that it certainly shut my life down. I mean, I was doing teaching and it stopped. Schools were closed. I had to recover from my own COVID experience itself. Friendships, some people really were frightened and panicked, and they didn't even want to get near anybody, so friendships were based on email, telephone calls. There was one good thing, because I belonged to a medical facility in West Haven, Connecticut. It also has a gym, so while most gyms, exercise facilities were closed down, I had the advantage, and a few of my close friends, to go to that gym every single day and maintain our workouts and fitness, because a lot of people got out of shape, during COVID. They're just sitting home. The gyms were closed. places like California, you could even go to the beaches and soak up that vitamin D sunshine.
That's right.
Which I think was not very good advice. But, it just kind of waylaid all our lives, most of our lives. What about you?
Pretty much the same thing. I had an interesting work situation, so I was an essential worker.
Right.
And so my life didn't change in its routine, but I actually got quarantined at my sister's for those 2 weeks. And one of the things that I chose to do, because I work now in sound, and we haven't talked about that, but I had a sound session. I did my tuning. We have a show on that.
Yeah.
So what I did was every day at 10 till 10:20, I offered on my live session on my Facebook page, and it was really amazing. It helped me so much feel like I was doing something to help, and it made me feel so good afterwards, where a lot of people said, and I didn't know if anybody was, I could tell some were watching, but they said it really helped me with a rhythm. Because one of the words that we had, Blur's Day, remember that? And we didn't know what day of the week it was. We were so out of the context of our daily life.
Yeah.
So,
And COVID, it's still around.
Right, we're not even out of the weeds.
I mean, our president, Joe Biden, says that the pandemic's over, and I think for the most part that's true. But we still have to be wary. And just a note on my sister, who has worked for the New York Times, based in China. She's been there for about 2.5 years in Beijing, and it's really rough there. There's the lockdown. She has to get tested still to this day 3 times a week. And just to go out into a supermarket, you have to show that you've been tested within 24 hours. So it's really rough over there in China and a few other countries. It's not over in the whole world or anything like that. I mean, Europe, United States, we're doing very well, but that's an example of, it's still out there.
As a matter of fact, what's interesting, Patrick and I were talking about this, is that I remained COVID-free up until recently. And Patrick got it at the beginning, and here we are with the show, and I had it at the end, and I got one of the variants, which was very different
Than the original.
Yes, it actually had digestive
Yeah.
problem with it. And I had to go get fluids because I just got dehydrated. And it's just incredible how things are mutating and how our culture is shifting around the navigation that we had to all learn about.
Yes, the virus mutates, it becomes a different variant, it weakens, but even though it might be a weakened virus, if your immune system is not strong, it doesn't matter, it can really hit you hard, even to this day. So you got to be very careful, and it's interesting how we reacted. I think we've learned a lot from this experience, and but there's one country, Sweden. Remember we talked about Sweden? Sweden never locked down. Right. They never locked down. They kept all their schools open, all their businesses, cafes were open, people had a normal life. What they did is try to accentuate services to the elderly, the vulnerable, which was very wise. And they didn't have any greater morbidity than we did. Even John Hopkins, now there's a sort of the post-mortem. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And I think that's going to be going on for years and years and years. But even John Hopkins said, the medical school, they did an analysis and said, lockdowns didn't work. Lockdowns didn't work. So who knows? Do masks work? Is it just an N95? There's a lot of back and forth on all of this. The main thing is we are where we are today, and we should be prepared, prepare ourselves for, uncertainty in the future.
Right. I was thinking how important this conversation really is, because a lot of us are not really discussing. One of the reasons being people are tired of talking about COVID. But it's really important, I feel, and I hope this helps you all to, and many of you probably have, really had to ask yourself, that's the question I've heard, what is important? How do I want to live now that I, for instance, don't have to go into work and I'm not on the road traveling and I can be at home in my pajamas from here down, right? There's so many shifts that have happened.
Yes. And
people have completely changed careers. A lot of people have had a lot of loss, while some have had a lot of gain.
Yes.
So there's a lot going on, and
Yes, and we've seen educationally too how that affected the young kids, teenagers, losing their sports, having to sit at home on a computer, laptop. The statistics are startling for inner city kids, minority kids, in terms of the loss of reading, math, science skills have gone down. So there's a lot to make up for this in that respect. Some parts of the country, like Florida, resumed in September, late August 2020. They kept their schools open the whole time and their businesses. So some places did pretty well, even though they were harshly criticized by certain people in the media. So I just hope we learn a lot from this, but it has changed our society. Some people are going to be working at home now forever. I have friends in Thailand, Puerto Rico, different parts of the world right now who are IT specialists, so they can work anywhere on earth. And so the changing of the workforce and all the different things that are going on are going to be, wow, we can't even anticipate perhaps.
I'm just thinking right now that think about those of you who had to learn Zoom, because especially for teachers. I remember a couple of my friends are professors, and they were like overwhelmed and very stressed about the fact that they had to teach their classes. Like, the regular agenda is enough, but having to learn the technical aspects of everything, keeping everybody on board, and it was for 5 times more the extra work they had. So think about what the adrenal glands are doing under all of the stress that we had and how it's affecting our health.
Well, I can attest to that because I was one of those teachers for a while who had a hybrid class, and that's the new word, one of our many words that have come out of COVID.
Which we'll talk about later.
A hybrid class of 18, 19 students, and about 11 or 12 were home. The rest were actually chose to come into the classroom. So it was back, forth, and seeing students wake in their pajamas, waking up, getting out of bed a minute before class starts, learning definitely diminished. I mean,
some of those people didn't even have internet or the equipment, computers or iPads, so it was really a difficult.
Good point, because even then, even though some of them may have had internet goes down.
That's right.
Which
it did a lot because of the there was so much use, there was so many people on one server, and down it would go, and that you'd get lost in the midst of something.
It happened a few times, right in the middle of a lesson it goes, and okay, that's it. Can't do anything.
And then you're in this vacuum of time wondering, do we go back on? I mean, there was so much uncertainty,
right,
which also adds to your stress level, because I think just in the wellness field alone, one of the biggest things that happens with people with stress is that if you don't know, the unknown is worse than knowing and having to hit something head on and deal with it and navigate that. When you don't know what you're dealing with, just like the long-term effects of COVID, for instance, we really don't know what's going on. So people are very, very stressed to this day still, even though we're out of the weeds and we can travel. Now, travel really changed, right? Yeah. Travel was so incredibly different because there were no planes weren't going up in the air. You didn't want to get into close quarters with anyone. A lot of people bought motorhomes, right? So motorhomes and campers sold out. Swimming pools sold out. What else? Home improvements. Pelotron, that's right. Not only that, but then I was also hearing the other day, or I saw a piece somewhere with news that a lot of people adopted animals and dogs during the pandemic, that point, and now they're back to work and they can't take care of them. So now all of those animals are back into the system looking for homes. So if you need a pet, please, by all means, get out there and help a pet, because there are plenty looking again.
Yeah.
So many shifts. Exercise, you were lucky.
Yeah.
You got on the...
I was one of the lucky ones. I probably never missed a workout or a day of exercise throughout the whole pandemic, and that was such a relief and a release to be able to go someplace and actually work out, exercise, and things like that. Where I live, we have a long walkway in West Haven, about 2.5 miles along the ocean. And I had it almost to myself on some days. Usually, if it were normal times, it would be packed with people. I'd walk up and down 2.5 miles, maybe I'd see 5 people. And some people would come close to me, or the moment they saw me walking, they would run over like I had
COVID.
COVID.
Like you had
I was
COVID.
going to say cooties. That's what I
Cooties,
said
it's
when we were
like
in my
it.
generation, cooties.
Right.
Something really strange, and it was really bizarre, trying to avoid people as if they had leprosy or something like that. But
It really did exaggerate the human condition. Really, like how we communicate with one another and what's appropriate and what's not. And then also, what about the anger issues, the fear, and the contemplation and the controversy about masks, and like protecting yourself or the other, and then also for people who don't believe in them, seeing someone wearing a mask was a trigger. So there were so many different ways that we were confused, and we did not really know how to support one another on certain instances consistently.
Very confusing, and of course our government, the CDC, recently apologized, said we got some things wrong. But we have to be very forgiving, I think, because this happens once
every 100 years.
A century, hopefully no more than once a century. And there's so much to learn and so much we didn't know, and what is this, where did it come from, how is it affecting us? So I think we have to be very forgiving, and we also have to give a lot of people, pats on the back. I mean, we are a resilient race, the American people, and we fought our way through it, and we're tough.
I think in general the human race is tough.
Yes, I mean we can handle a lot. I mean it's a tragedy for some people, but so where do we go from here?
Well, we have actually, it didn't even talk, you've mentioned a few words. We wanted to bring up how our language, like all of these things have changed. Socially we've changed, friendships, work, travel, education, personal changes, language. We have a whole new vocabulary. And as a matter of fact, I was just reading one of the workers who makes big decisions on what's allowed for new entries into the dictionary, I don't remember which dictionary, said that they have never, up until this time, or it was 1997 was the last time they had maybe 10 entries. Now they had so many new entries, and take a look, we've got shelter in place, quarantine, lockdown, we all know what that is.
Doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling.
And Zoom became such a big part of people's lives.
Hybrid learning, you talked about N95, social distancing, PPE. Remember when they first started using that term? It's like, what is that?
Ventilators, natural immunity.
Essential worker, non-essential worker, hand sanitizer. Yes. We also had, I thought that was interesting because that also occurred a year later after the lockdown, that Black Lives Matter was very prominent, and they referred to it as the twin pandemic because of the state.
Lots was going on.
Yeah, there was just so much that came out of all of that.
So what are a few tips we can leave our audience with on immunity, perhaps?
Well, what can we do now?
Yeah, because we're going into the winter season, fall, winter, hibernation season, and just a few suggestions. We could list 100, and in another show we will go into this in more in depth, but people are under a lot of stress, and their diets aren't perfect. A good, strong multivitamin can make up for a lot. It has certain nutrients like zinc and selenium in a good multivitamin, and very important.
Oh, and you had mentioned exercise, mindful breathing. So instead of thinking you have to go into a whole practice of breath work, because breath work is fabulous, just taking a mindful breath to make sure that your intention of delivering that oxygen into every cell, if that's all you think about before you take that one breath, it's going to be much more of a powerful breath. So take a moment and take a breath with intention and breathe it all out. I like to offer breathing in and having the breath be like a vacuum cleaner. It's going to take everything out of your system that you no longer need, and then exhaling it out, give it right back down to Mother Earth. Just as though the trees are
exactly.
transferring
That's
that
great
oxygen.
Advice, and stress release, resting, relaxing. Sleep is so important,
So important, and so many people are having sleep issues.
Yeah.
Right now I've run into a load of people having sleep issues. So
one of the scientific studies showed some people use melatonin, which can be very helpful for some people to aid in their sleep. But melatonin, what very few people don't realize is it's also a powerful, powerful immune booster. And there are scientific studies that related melatonin to the COVID virus. So it's not just sleep, it's immunity and antioxidant. So
I didn't know that.
Very surprisingly. In fact, even in Italy, some oncologists are using it and combining it high dose with chemotherapy and finding very positive results.
And that's easy access. You can get melatonin very easily.
Of course, we did a show on vitamin D, which is my favorite nutrient for boosting your immune system. Especially, just think, COVID hit during the winter time.
Yeah, we went right into it.
People were at their lowest depths of vitamin D, particularly in New England here, northern latitudes. And vitamin D was crucial, and all those studies are out there all around the world, that those who had therapeutic levels of vitamin D dramatically decreased their risk of going into the hospital, going on ventilators, and actually dying. So vitamin D is crucial. We've done a whole, for those of you who want to know more, look at our show, Vitamin D and Sunshine. But not only does it boost the immune system, but it keeps the immune system from overreacting. And that's what got a lot of people in trouble. It's called a cytokine storm. And it's like an autoimmune reaction. Your body turns on itself and starts destroying lung tissue. So vitamin D was crucial.
Vitamin C is a good standard. The microbiome, so probiotics, and we had a lot of mental health challenges. Like
yes.
People got into depression.
Yes.
A lot of things happen that way, and we have a lot going on in the gut. If our gut health is off, then the serotonin that's produced there, a lot of neurochemistry happens in the stomach first.
Yeah, so probiotics great for the immune system, and of course that vagus nerve. Remember the vagus nerve?
Vagus nerve
goes back and forth from the brain, gut reaction. So immune system. Vitamin C, of course, has been proven to be great.
Anti-inflammatory ginger, and also garlic we didn't write in there, so anything that's going to help you. Elderberry.
In China, where I've lived, and my sister lives there now, ginger is the main nutrient used for any type of virus, inflammation, things like that, because it's potent. It even is anti-cancer, but a lot of antivirals in ginger. And of course, we're going into the flu season, and I've talked to, in all my seminars with nurses,
Thanks, Frank,
elderberry, right?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was just letting Frank, thank you, Frank. Sorry, Patrick.
So anyway, those are a few things that can be very helpful. Get some exercise too, everybody. Stay in shape.
Yeah, and kindness, practicing kindness. That was one thing it was interesting. I couldn't find a lot of images, and we saw them everywhere, where people would put hearts on their windows or thank you notes to everyone and posters and leaving messages in places, and that really helped keep community strong. And we need to feel connected, because one of the things that happened was we felt very disconnected. As a matter of fact, that's one of the effects for me, being
Marlisa,
social.
Maybe you would like to invite anyone in the audience to write onto Facebook their expressions.
Please. That's a great idea.
Get it off their chest,
Health Buzz Show, Facebook. That's where we're at, and we'd love to hear from you.
Let us know what you think, because I think these conversations are important to have, and we need to be prepared. And our next show is going to be on preparing for the winter season and fall season. All the things you can do, lifestyle, nutrients, diet, to fortify yourself so you can get through this. And if you do get exposed, you minimize or mitigate the risk.
Right, and if you don't get exposed, then you're all the better for it anyway, because you'll have more vitality, and you'll build your resilience up for the stress levels that we're facing due to all of the things that are still uncertain.
So Marlisa, we're back.
We're back. Thank you so much for having us come back. Thanks, SEC TV again. And this is the end of the show. We
thank you very much. Thank you, Marlisa, and we'll see you in the
Patrick.
next show. Bye.
Take a